I still remember the sound of my own voice shaking. As I listened to that voicemail, the sound of an unfamiliar woman's voice whispering words that would change everything in an instant. The message was from a nurse, someone who'd been working at our hospital overnight, but something about her tone sent a shiver down my spine. She mentioned seeing me with someone, but it wasn't just any someone. She said they were holding hands, and the way I remember feeling is like time had frozen for a moment. As I rewound the voicemail to play it again, that's when the curiosity gap hit me. What could this nurse possibly be talking about? Who was I with that night? And why did her words send such an icy chill down my spine? That was when I started digging into my memories from the previous year. It had been a crazy time. I'd just gotten back together with my ex after a breakup, and we were in one of those honeymoon phases where every little thing felt like a new adventure. But looking back now, there's this whole chunk of time that feels fuzzy, like someone took a blowtorch to the edges of my memory. I remember being at the hospital for my mom's surgery. She'd had another bout with cancer, and I was holding her hand as they wheeled her into the OR. After it was all over, I went back to her room, still trying to process everything that had happened. But then something strange happens. A whole hour just disappears from my recollection. The nurse's words kept echoing in my head. Who was this mystery person I'd been with? And what exactly were we doing together? The not knowing made me feel like I was trapped in some kind of bad dream. And the more I tried to remember, the foggier things got. I started retracing my steps from that night. Where had I gone after leaving the hospital? Had I really seen someone? Or was it just a hallucination born out of stress and fatigue? It wasn't until I stumbled upon an old phone bill that the pieces started falling into place. There was this one number, over 10 calls in a single night, with just enough time between them for me to assume they were from my ex trying to reach me. But something about the pattern didn't add up. That's when it hit me. I'd been getting these frantic texts from someone else that entire night. Someone whose name is still etched in my mind like a scar, because she'd been calling and texting me non-stop. But her number was blocked on my phone, so I had no idea who it even was. The nurse's words came flooding back to me. I saw you with someone. It wasn't the person I expected. In fact, it was this woman whose name kept nagging at the edge of my memory. And that's when everything clicked into place. She'd been reaching out to me all that time. As I pieced together what had really happened, it felt like a weight was lifting off my shoulders. But then there were more questions. Who was she? What did we do together? And why did the whole night just disappear from my memory? I'll never forget the feeling of sitting in my living room that day, staring at these old phone records and texts, trying to make sense of it all. It's like I'd been living a lie, or maybe not even that. Maybe I was just too scared to confront what really happened. Looking back now, I realize how much time we waste on things we don't understand. We spend so long dwelling on the unknown that sometimes we forget to look for answers right in front of us. And then there's this voice in my head still whispering, "You'll never remember everything." It's funny. I used to think that memory worked like a video camera, just recording everything we see and do. But it doesn't work that way at all. We don't even notice most of what happens to us, let alone remember it. And then there are these weird gaps in our minds where whole chunks of time just disappear. I've been trying to track down the nurse who left me that voicemail for weeks now, but she's gone off the grid. Her number was a burner phone, and I couldn't find any record of her working at the hospital where she said she did. It's like she vanished into thin air, which, come to think of it, is exactly what she told me happened that night. The more I dig, the more I realize just how little I actually know about my life. What if I've been living a whole different reality? What if everything I thought was real was just a simulation or something? I still can't shake the feeling that there's more to the story than what I'm seeing. The nurse's words keep echoing in my head. You're not who you think you are, but who am I? Then, and why is she trying to tell me this stuff? The strange thing is, the more I try to piece together what happened that night, the more it feels like a puzzle with missing pieces. The nurse's voicemail was just the beginning. Now I've started finding other clues. Old texts from someone named Jay, who said we were close friends, but when I try to reach out, they never respond. Strange entries in my bank statements that I don't remember making. Even a faint memory of driving a car down some winding road with no idea where I was going. It's like someone else is trying to tell me the story of my life, but whose? And what do they want from me? I've been talking to friends and family about it, but nobody seems to know anything. They all just give me this look like I'm losing my mind, which might not be entirely off base. As I sit here staring at these phone records and trying to make sense of everything, I keep thinking about that phrase, "You'll never remember everything." Is she right? Am I doomed to spend the rest of my life wondering what really happened? I still don't know if I believe her, but one thing's for sure, I'm not going to let this drop. It was then that I decided to pay a visit to the hospital, where she worked as an overnight nurse. I hoped someone there might be able to shed some light on what she'd said, and why she'd left me that cryptic message in the first place. As I walked through the hospital's crowded halls, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, a sensation that had grown all too familiar since those strange voicemail messages started showing up. The nurse who finally agreed to talk to me was named Rachel, and she seemed genuinely concerned about my situation. She listened patiently as I explained what Emily had said, her expression growing more serious with each passing minute. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "I think I know why you're so upset. Emily's been acting really strange lately," Rachel began, choosing her words carefully. "She's always been a good nurse, but over the past few months, well, let's just say she's become increasingly withdrawn. She stopped socializing with us after work, and when we did try to talk to her about it, she'd just brush it off." I leaned forward, my heart racing with anticipation. "Do you think something was bothering her? Something that would make her leave me a message like that?" Rachel hesitated, glancing around the room as if making sure they were truly alone. "To be honest, we're not really sure what's going on with Emily right now. She's always been private about her personal life, but there is one thing I think you should know." She paused again, this time to collect her thoughts before continuing. "About a month ago, Emily came to work visibly shaken. She wouldn't say what was wrong, but she eventually confided in me that she'd stumbled upon something while working the night shift, something that made her question everything about her job, and possibly even her life." I felt a shiver run down my spine as I processed Rachel's words. What could Emily have possibly discovered on the hospital floor to make her behave so erratically? And what did it have to do with me or, for that matter, the mysterious messages I'd been receiving? Just then, Rachel's phone rang, and she apologized before answering it, as she listened to whoever was on the other end. Her expression turned grave. "I'm sorry," she said finally, hanging up the phone. "It seems Emily's just called in sick again." A wave of frustration washed over me. Sick? That didn't make any sense, not after what Rachel had just told me. I decided to pay a visit to my own doctor, hoping he might be able to help me piece together some answers. As I walked out of the hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's strange behavior was only the tip of an enormous iceberg, one that threatened to upend not just my life, but also everyone around me. The question now is, what exactly did Emily discover that night? I rushed back to my apartment, determined to get some answers. As I burst through the door, Rachel was already there, pacing back and forth in front of the living room window. She stopped as I entered, and her eyes locked onto mine, a look of fear etched on her face. "Rachel, what's going on?" I demanded. But before she could respond, my phone rang, shrill in the silence. It was Emily again. This time, her voice was different, panicked, desperate, and then she said something that made my blood run cold. "It wasn't just me. Rachel, there are others, people who know." Rachel's eyes widened in horror as Emily's words hung in the air like a challenge, and for a moment we both stood there frozen, our minds racing to comprehend what she was implying. Then, without a word, Rachel turned and sprinted towards the bedroom, leaving me staring after her in confusion. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down, thinking that maybe Emily had just made some wild accusation that didn't mean anything. But as I listened to Emily's frantic voice on the phone, I felt my gut twist into knots. What did she mean by others? And who exactly was she talking about? My mind started racing with worst-case scenarios. Were these people somehow connected to my work? Or perhaps to Rachel? I tried calling out to Rachel, but she didn't respond. I took a tentative step towards the bedroom, wondering if she'd collapsed from shock or what have you. But then Emily's voice snapped me back into focus. "Wait, don't do anything yet. Just listen," she said, her tone suddenly steady and calculated. I felt my heart sink as I realized that Rachel had probably already seen something on her phone, some message or email, that had set off a chain reaction of fear. I didn't know what Emily was going to say next, but I knew it couldn't be good. "Listen," Emily repeated, her voice dripping with an air of menace. "There's something you need to understand about our hospital, about the kind of patients we see there." And then she dropped a bombshell that left me reeling. A patient named John Doe had been at St. Michael's just hours before he'd been admitted to ICU. But here was the kicker. John Doe didn't exist on any medical records or insurance claims. I stood there in stunned silence as Emily's words conjured up images of some sinister plot, unfolding behind closed doors. And when she finally fell silent, I knew that Rachel and I were staring into a void, so deep it threatened to swallow us whole. The more Emily spoke, the more I felt like I was trapped in some kind of twisted medical soap opera. She told me about John Doe's chart being mysteriously created, the notes on his treatment blanketed with redacted text, and the eerie feeling among nurses that he was somehow off. "We can't even get a blood type on him," she said, her voice low and urgent. I couldn't process it all. What kind of hospital didn't know basic patient information? And yet, Emily's words stuck with me like a bad omen. As we wrapped up the call, I felt a creeping sense of unease that followed me into my daily routine. Every time I saw Rachel's name on our shared calendar or checked in on her at work, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the shadows. I know it sounds crazy now, but back then, Emily's words created a ripple effect, making me question everything about our lives, our jobs, our friends, even our marriage. That night, I lay awake thinking about John Doe, his non-existent chart haunting my dreams like a ghostly presence. Who was he? What did the hospital want to hide from us? And why did Emily's voice still echo in my mind, like a warning siren blaring into my brain? But it was what she said next that still keeps me up at night. "I've seen this before, and I know how it ends." As the days turned into weeks, Emily's words continued to swirl in my head like a maelstrom, threatening to pull us under. I found myself constantly searching for John Doe, scouring medical records, hospital databases, and even online forums where people shared stories of mysterious patients. But every lead ended in a dead end, leaving me with more questions than answers. It was then that Emily called again, her voice laced with a sense of urgency that made my heart skip a beat. "Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th and Main," she said, her words tumbling out in a breathless rush. "I've found something, but you need to see it for yourself." I hung up the phone, feeling like I was stepping into a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up. And yet, I knew I had to go. The more I learned about John Doe, the more I became convinced that Emily was right. This was all connected to something much bigger than us.